I'm Rachel.
And I'm Kevin.
Kevin, can I ask you something?
Of course, Rachel. What's on your mind?
What's something you're afraid of?
That's a difficult question. I think I've had many fears at different times in my life. Some were big, some were quite small, and some I didn't even realize were fears until much later.
What do you mean?
Sometimes we don't say, I'm afraid. Instead, we say things like, I'm not ready. I'll do it later. Maybe next year. I don't think I'm good enough. I'll try when I feel more confident. But sometimes those are simply different ways of saying, I'm scared.
That's so true. Fear doesn't always look like fear. Sometimes it looks like procrastination. Sometimes it looks like making excuses. Sometimes it looks like staying comfortable.
Exactly. And that's what today's episode is about.
Today's episode is called Learn to Face Your Fear.
We'll talk about why fear can stop us from doing things we really want to do, why avoiding fear often makes it stronger, and how small acts of courage can help us build confidence.
And we're not going to say that you should never feel afraid. Fear is a normal part of being human.
Exactly. Being brave doesn't mean having no fear. It means deciding that something is important enough to do, even when you're afraid.
If you're a B1 or B2 English learner, this conversation is perfect for you.
And if you're a strong A2 learner, don't worry about understanding every word. Just relax, listen, and enjoy.
Let's begin. Kevin, why do you think people are so afraid of doing things differently?
I think one reason is uncertainty. We know what life looks like today, but when we make a change, we don't know what will happen tomorrow.
So sometimes the unknown feels more frightening than the situation we're already in.
Exactly. Imagine someone who doesn't like their job. They complain about it every day. They're tired, they're unhappy. But when someone suggests looking for another job, they say, but what if I can't find anything?
So they stay in a situation they don't enjoy because the alternative feels uncertain.
Yes, the familiar can feel safer, even when the familiar isn't making us happy.
That's interesting. Maybe comfort isn't always the same as safety.
I think that's an important distinction. Something can feel comfortable simply because we're used to it. That doesn't necessarily mean it's good for us.
It's like wearing an old pair of shoes. They might not be very good, they might even hurt your feet a little, but you're used to them.
Exactly. And buying a new pair means making a decision. You have to choose. You have to try something different. You have to accept that the new shoes might not feel right immediately.
And life can be like that too. We sometimes stay with the familiar because changing requires courage.
Yes, and fear often asks us to wait. It says, not today, maybe tomorrow. You're not ready. Try again when you feel confident.
But what if we never feel completely ready?
That's the problem. Sometimes we're waiting for confidence to appear before we take action, but confidence often comes after action.
So we don't always become confident first. Sometimes we act first, and confidence comes later.
Exactly. Think about learning to ride a bicycle. You don't become confident by sitting on the bicycle and thinking about riding it. You become confident by trying. You wobble, you fall, you try again. Eventually, your body learns.
And after a while, something that once felt frightening becomes normal.
Exactly. That's how many fears work. The first step feels enormous. The second step feels difficult. But after enough practice, the thing that once frightened you can become part of your normal life.
Kevin, what do you think people fear more? Failure or what other people will think about their failure?
I think for many people it's the second one. We're often more afraid of being judged than actually failing.
I agree. Imagine someone wants to start a YouTube channel. They have an idea, they've written some notes, they want to make their first video, but then they start thinking, what if people laugh at me? What if nobody watches? What if my voice sounds strange? What if someone leaves a negative comment?
And suddenly, they never make the video.
Exactly.
The fear of what might happen becomes stronger than the desire to try.
That's why fear can be so powerful. It doesn't always need evidence. Sometimes imagination is enough.
Our minds can create an entire future in a few seconds. And usually, we imagine the worst version.
Yes, we imagine everyone judging us, everyone laughing, everything going wrong. But in reality, most people are probably not thinking about us nearly as much as we imagine.
That's very true. Most people are busy thinking about their own lives, their own problems, their own mistakes, their own fears.
Exactly. We sometimes imagine that we're standing on a huge stage while everyone is watching us. But most of the time, everyone is simply trying to get through their own day.
That can actually be quite freeing.
It is, because once you realize that people aren't watching you as closely as you imagined, you become more willing to try.
I think this is especially important for English learners.
Absolutely. A lot of learners who are afraid to speak English because they're worried about making mistakes.
They know the words, they understand the grammar, they can write sentences, but when someone says, "Can you speak English?" they suddenly become nervous.
And their mind goes blank.
Exactly. Then they think, "My English is terrible."
But often, their English isn't terrible, they're simply nervous.
That's such an important difference.
If you're afraid of making mistakes, you may speak less. If you speak less, you get less practice. If you get less practice, your confidence grows more slowly, and then the fear becomes stronger.
So, avoiding the thing you're afraid of can actually make the fear bigger.
Exactly. That's the strange thing about fear. We think avoidance protects us, but sometimes avoidance teaches our brain this really is dangerous.
So, if I always avoid speaking English because I'm nervous, my brain may start believing that speaking English is something I should fear.
Yes, but if you speak a little, even while nervous, your brain starts learning something different. I can do this. I survived. I made a mistake, but nothing terrible happened.
And then the next time becomes a little easier.
Exactly. Courage grows through experience, not through thinking about courage.
Kevin, can I ask you something? Do you think we need to get rid of our fears?
No, I don't think that's possible. And I don't think it's necessary.
Why not?
Because fear can actually be useful. Fear can tell us to be careful. If you're walking alone somewhere unfamiliar at night, fear might tell you to pay attention. If you're about to make an important decision, fear might encourage you to think carefully. The problem isn't fear itself. The problem is when fear controls every decision we make.
So, fear can be a signal, but it shouldn't always be the driver.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it. Fear can sit in the passenger seat. It doesn't have to drive the car.
I like that, because sometimes we treat fear like it's the boss. Fear says, "Don't go," and we immediately obey.
Yes, but we can learn to say, I hear you, I understand you're trying to protect me, but I'm going to decide what happens next.
That sounds powerful.
It is, because courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is choosing your actions even when fear is present.
Can you give an example?
Imagine you're afraid of speaking in front of a group. You have a presentation tomorrow. Your fear says, cancel it. You could listen to the fear and avoid the presentation, or you could say, I'm nervous, that's okay. I'll practice tonight. I'll prepare my notes, and tomorrow I'll do my best. You're still afraid, but you're moving forward.
So, courage can be very ordinary. It doesn't always look dramatic.
Exactly. Sometimes courage is making a phone call you've been avoiding. Sometimes it's asking for help. Sometimes it's saying no. Sometimes it's starting again. Sometimes it's speaking English even though you're worried about making mistakes.
Sometimes it's telling someone how you really feel.
Yes, and sometimes it's simply getting out of bed and trying again after a difficult day.
I think we sometimes imagine courage as something huge, like climbing a mountain or doing something dangerous. But everyday courage can be much quieter.
Absolutely. And I think that's the kind of courage most of us need.
There's another thing about fear that interests me. Sometimes we're not afraid of failing, we're afraid of succeeding.
That's a fascinating idea.
Think about it. If you succeed, your life might change. You might have more responsibility, people might expect more from you, you might have to leave your comfort zone.
That's true. Success can create uncertainty too.
Imagine someone wants to become fluent in English. They dream about speaking confidently. But becoming confident might mean speaking with new people, giving presentations, traveling, applying for better jobs, meeting people from different countries. Suddenly, their dream requires them to become a different version of themselves.
That's a really interesting point. Sometimes we're not afraid of the goal, we're afraid of the person we might need to become to reach it.
Exactly.
And that's why growth can feel uncomfortable. When you grow, your old habits don't always fit anymore.
But perhaps that's not a bad thing. Maybe discomfort is sometimes a sign that we're growing.
Yes, not every uncomfortable situation means we're on the wrong path. Sometimes discomfort simply means we're doing something unfamiliar.
And unfamiliar doesn't automatically mean dangerous.
Exactly. That's an important sentence. Unfamiliar doesn't automatically mean dangerous.
So, how can someone start facing their fears?
I wouldn't recommend starting with the biggest fear. Start small.
Why?
Because small acts of courage build evidence. If you're afraid of speaking English, don't begin by giving a 1-hour presentation. Start with 1 sentence. Then have a short conversation. Then speak for 5 minutes. Then 10.
You're teaching your brain, I can do difficult things.
Exactly. The goal isn't to become fearless overnight. The goal is to become a little braver through practice.
That's much more realistic.
And remember, you don't need to wait until your fear disappears. You can carry your fear with you. You can say, I'm nervous, and I'm going to do it anyway.
I think that's one of the most useful sentences we can learn. I'm nervous, and I'm going to do it anyway.
Exactly. Because bravery isn't a feeling, it's a decision. And every time you make that decision, you become a little more familiar with courage.
Maybe the goal isn't to become someone who never feels fear. Maybe it's to become someone who doesn't let fear make every decision.
I think that's exactly it. And once you understand that, fear begins to lose some of its power.
Because you realize, I can feel afraid and still move forward.
And sometimes that's all the courage you need.
Kevin, I think there's another important question. What happens when we face a fear and things don't go well?
That's always possible. Facing your fear doesn't guarantee success. Sometimes you try and you fail. Sometimes you speak and make mistakes. Sometimes you take a chance and it doesn't work out.
Then what?
Then you learn, and you try to separate the result from your identity. If something doesn't work, it doesn't mean you're incapable. It means that particular attempt didn't work.
That's an important difference. I failed sounds like an identity. This attempt failed sounds like information.
Exactly. And information can help you improve.
So even failure can become part of courage.
Absolutely. Imagine someone learning to swim. They don't become a good swimmer because every attempt is perfect. They improve because they practice. The same is true for speaking English. You won't always find the perfect word. You won't always use the perfect grammar. You might pronounce something incorrectly. But every attempt gives you experience.
And experience makes the next attempt easier.
Exactly. That's why I think we should stop asking, how can I avoid making mistakes, and start asking, how can I learn from my mistakes?
That changes everything.
There's also something beautiful about facing fear. You discover things about yourself.
Like what?
You discover that you're stronger than you thought. You discover that you can handle uncertainty. You discover that embarrassment doesn't last forever.
You discover that failure isn't the end. And sometimes you discover that the thing you were afraid of wasn't as frightening as you imagined.
That's true. Fear often looks bigger from a distance.
Exactly. A small step can change your perspective. Before you take the step, you think, this is impossible. After you take it, you think, that wasn't so bad.
And then you're ready for the next step.
Yes, that's how courage grows, one small decision at a time.
Now it's time for today's word walk. Let's learn 5 useful English words from our conversation. Word 1. Fear.
Fear is the feeling you have when you believe something may be dangerous, difficult, or unpleasant. For example, fear stopped her from trying something new.
Word 2. Courage.
Courage means the ability to do something difficult or frightening even when you're afraid. For example, it took courage to speak in front of so many people.
Word 3. Uncertainty.
Uncertainty means not knowing what will happen in the future. For example, the uncertainty of moving to a new city made him nervous.
Word 4. Avoidance.
Avoidance means staying away from something because it makes you uncomfortable or afraid. For example, avoidance can make your fear stronger over time.
Word 5. Confidence.
Confidence means believing in your ability to do something successfully. For example, speaking English every day helped her build confidence.
Thank you so much for listening with us today.
And remember, you don't have to be fearless to move forward. You just need to take one small step.
If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and share it with another English learner.
And tell us in the comments, what's one fear you'd like to face? I'm Kevin.
And I'm Rachel.
And you are listening to the English Goal Podcast.
Keep learning.
Keep practicing.
Keep believing in yourself.
And remember, your English goal and your life goal are both closer than you think.